Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our September onX Hunt 101 Masterclass. We'll get rolling here in just a couple of minutes, but before we do, a couple of housekeeping items while folks get logged in and get settled in. So first off, your audio and video are turned off, so you don't have to worry if there's any noise behind you or anything going on. We can't see or hear you. There is a couple of our customer support agents answering questions during this. So if you have questions about kind of anything we're talking about or maybe anything we're not talking about tonight, you can drop those in the Q&A box. That's down, should be near the bottom of your screen. The chat is there as well. Chat's a great place just to let us know where you're tuning in from, who you are. Chat is not a good place for questions, however. They are just easily lost there as more chats come in. Q&A box is the spot to drop those questions. This class is being recorded, so if you have to drop off early or you want to go back and re-watch it, we're going to send you an email tomorrow evening with the YouTube link to this recording. All of our master classes get uploaded to our YouTube channel. We have a playlist on there titled onX Hunt Masterclasses. If you want to go back and view any old classes going back to 2022 when we started this program, all of those classes are listed there as well. You can watch them whenever you'd like. We are also doing a giveaway during this class. We're going to give away some onX Hunt t-shirts. You do have to be present during the class to enter that. So we will post the giveaway link later on in the class, just so that everybody has a chance to enter. And then we will draw the winners tomorrow and get some shirts sent out to those lucky 10 folks. So looks like we're kind of leveling off with numbers here. Looks like most people are logged in. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to start off going through your different membership options, what a basic, a premium, and elite membership gets you. Then we'll dive into the app. We'll talk about map layers, which is really the heart and soul of the onX system. We'll talk about utilizing the app when you're outside of cell service via offline maps. We'll go over using waypoints and some of the other map tools, how to use the compass mode and how to find your location. We'll switch over to the onX web map to talk about base maps and some of our different imagery options, as well as how to perform a couple different types of searches for some different things. And then we'll get to the Q&A and the giveaway. So that's what we're going to cover today. There's a lot of information in this class. I'm going to try to balance, the need for going slow enough so that everybody can kind of keep up while also being respectful of your time. We can't really be here for 3 hours tonight. So we aren't going to touch on every single thing within the app. This is a 101 class. The goal is, at the end of this class, you are more comfortable using the app. You could go out this weekend and turn on some layers and turn off some layers. You can download offline maps. You can mark waypoints. You can navigate while out in the field. You can track yourself and find your way back to the truck or to the house at the end of the day. That's kind of our goal for this class. Like I said, there's a lot more to the app. Some of that stuff we cover in other classes, but this is going to be kind of your basic 101. Here's what you need to get going. So with that, I'm going to switch over to my iPad here so that I can pull up the app so that you can follow along with me. So if you are watching this class on a computer, it is a good idea, in my opinion, to have your phone or your tablet with you so that you can follow along and do what I'm doing here. If you're watching on a phone or tablet, no big deal. It's going to be hard to follow along because you're going to be in and out of Zoom the whole time, but if you do have that option, great way to learn. So here I have an iPad. If you have an Android device, things will look very similar. There might be some small things that are slightly different, but by and large, the two systems operate the same. So if I zoom out a little bit, you can see here we are in western Montana. My blue dot there shows my location. And as I start zooming in, I'm going to start seeing some more information pop up on my map. So what you're seeing right now is the private lands layer. That is those orange boxes with the white and black writing inside of it. That is, that's kind of the bread and butter of onX. That's how we kind of got started, showing you the different land ownership. If I zoom out a little bit and move my map east of town here to where there's some public land, you see these different shades overlaid on top of the map. That is showing you public lands or government lands, okay? And they're all color coded. If you're saying to yourself right now, Jack, I don't have any of this information on my map, it's all in your layers, okay? You may have a layer turned off. So before I really dive into layers, I do want to talk about our different membership options. So if you have a basic membership right now, what that means is you haven't paid for a membership, you maybe started a trial and that 7-day trial expired, or you previously had a paid membership and it expired, that reverts you to what we call our basic membership. With a basic membership, you don't have access to any map layers or really any of the tools. What you basically get is a view of a blank map. So with a basic membership, your map's gonna look a lot like this, right? Not a lot of information, just kind of blank aerial imagery on there. So that's your basic membership. To get access to all of those map layers and our map tools, you need to purchase either a premium or an elite membership. Premium membership, there are two premiums. There's a premium 1-state membership, that's $35 a year, and there's a premium 2-state membership, that's $50 a year. So what the premium membership gets you is access to layers for 1 or 2 states. So let's say right now I have a 1-state premium membership. That means I have access to these Montana layers. And I should back up. When I open up my map layers, I'm going in the lower left-hand corner of my map screen. So if you go down to the bottom left, there's a button there that says Hunt Map Layers. I'm going to tap on that. Let's say I have a premium membership. I see my 1 state listed there in that Montana folder. Layers are grouped into either folders or some people call them collections. Okay, so you have state collections, then you have some that are more nationwide. My Montana folder contains 9 layers. Your state may have a different amount, just depending on what types of programs your state might have for like walk-in access or things like that. So I'm going to start turning some of these layers on. The private lands and government lands, they should be on by default for you, as well as hunting districts. But if not, it's just as simple as tapping the switch there to turn them on. Okay, so that's a premium 1 state, gets you access to those state layers for 1 state. 2 state, just like it sounds, gets you access for 2 states. Maybe you live in Pennsylvania, but you go out to Colorado to hunt every year. Those are the 2 states you need. You get that premium 2-state membership. Maybe you live on the border of North and South Dakota and you hunt both. 2-state membership's great for that. Our kind of full spectrum membership is our elite membership. So elite gets you access to layers for all 50 states plus Canada. It also gets you access to a whole bunch of different tools. So we'll talk about some of those different tools, but a big one is if you're applying for hunting tags in the West, we have our tag application kind of drawing research system called Hunt Research Tools, where you can look up your draw odds for different states and you can look up the different season structures and things like that. That comes with Elite. You also get access to a bunch of discounts and deals with partners. So things like tree stands, boots, Vortex Optics, Primo's Game Calls, different stuff like that. Born and Raised Outdoors, their store. So some straight discounts from brands, as well as learning opportunities. So we have partnered with THP's Deer School, the Elk Collective. We have some shooting courses on there from Vortex and Seekins. We have some elk calling. We have some turkey hunting information. A lot of different stuff, even some dog training stuff on there. So that all comes with your elite membership as well, where you get access to some of those educational programs as well. So that's a quick rundown of your different membership options. So to see what I'm seeing on the map, you do have to have a paid membership. So I touched on it a little earlier, but let's really dive into these map layers now. So I've got my public lands right here. You can tell they're government lands or public lands. I'm gonna use those two interchangeably tonight because they have this coloration over them. Okay, and you see there's a few different colors around me. If you want to know what that coloration means, what am I looking at here? The best thing to do is tap on the map. So when I tapped on the map there on that green coloration, it's going to bring up this information card. We call it a query card. That is telling me this is Lolo National Forest. So it's U.S. Forest Service. It's going to tell me the county, the acreage. This also happens to be a restricted area. You can tell, probably by looking on the map, it's right outside of town. Pretty popular place for hiking and dog walking and things like that. So they have some restrictions as far as discharging of firearms and things like that in there. Important to note. The kind of theme for this part of the segment is, or this part of the class is, if you don't know what something is on the map, try tapping on it. That is kind of where our legend is. We don't have a classic legend like you might be used to on a paper map. The way you find out more information, the way you find out what different symbols mean or coloration is by tapping on the map. For example, if I zoom out, I go to this, well, that's not green. I know that's not Forest Service. What is it? Bureau of Land Management administers that parcel, okay? There's blue here. That's going to be state of Montana. Once you get into it and once you start using it, it kind of becomes second nature. You can tell right away, oh, that's state land, that's BLM, that's Forest Service, that's a national park. Okay, it just takes a little bit of practice. You can also tap on private parcels. So here I am at the onX office in Missoula. I can tap on the parcel and it tells me the owner of the land, in this case it's an LLC. You get the tax address there. You get how many acres it is. You get what county it is. So if you see a parcel of land and you want to know, man, who owns that? Tap on it. It'll tell you their name and give you their tax address. So that tax address, important distinction here, is not the address of the parcel itself necessarily. It may be, like if it's somebody's house, they probably get their taxes sent to their house, right? But it's the mailing address for the owner. So in this case, it's an LLC. That's not the street we're located on here. You'll see this a lot, especially when we're talking about hunting permissions, farm and ranch property. The owner may not live there, but at least you have a way to get in contact with them. So if you want to send a letter, look them up in the white pages or something like that. So again, all you have to do, tap on the parcel. That's going to bring up more information for you. I'm gonna go back into hunt map layers here, lower left-hand corner. I'm gonna tap on Montana. One other layer I want to talk about, this one, I haven't chatted with the CX folks, but I bet they're hearing a lot about it right now because I think a lot of Wyoming rifle hunting districts open tomorrow. The hunting districts layer. In your state, it's probably called something different. It might be called GMUs, deer permit areas, deer zones, hunting zones. Every state calls it something different, but it's it's how your state is broken up by different hunting units. So if I zoom out of Montana, you can see some of those green lines. Those are regular lines with the number on the inside. Those are our hunting districts. The reason this one can cause people some trouble is a lot of states have different units for different animals, for different species. If I expand this menu, you can see Montana has quite a few, right? By default, your state is probably going to have the deer units, or if they just have generic GMUs for all big game species, that'll be chosen by default 9 times out of 10. We pick the most commonly hunted species that people are most interested in. However, in a couple weeks, I have an antelope tag in Montana, so I don't need the deer and elk districts. I want the antelope districts. So to change that, all I'm going to do is tap on that switch there for the Antelope Hunt District. Now when I zoom out, the map has changed. If I go to western Montana, I'm not seeing any green lines because there's no antelope hunting districts out here. They're all more in the central, southern, and eastern part of the state. Okay, so we get a lot of calls from Wyoming on this because Wyoming breaks theirs down more than any other state that I'm aware of. And people will usually say something like, man, I'm looking at the Wyoming regs, I'm looking at onX, and you guys have the numbers wrong. It's totally messed up. 9 times out of 10, I would say probably 10 times out of 10, they're looking at the deer regulations and they have antelope turned on or some, combination of that. So in your map layers, make sure you have the proper, these are called sub-layers, these different districts. Make sure you have the proper sub-layer turned on. For right now, I'm just going to go back to my deer and elk hunt districts and then leave that. We're not going to spend a ton of time on all of the different layers in the state. Couple I want to mention, the possible access layer. Possible access is highlighting private land that may have access, may have public access. Here in western Montana, it's a lot of timber company land. So it used to be owned by Weyerhaeuser, timber company. They sold all of that. It's owned by a bunch of different folks now. But a lot of times those areas are open for hunting, open for public recreation. They often do have some rules attached to it. They may not allow camping or campfires or target shooting or different things. But it's private land, open to the public. Different parts of the country, it might be Nature Conservancy. The Nature Conservancy has a lot of land that they allow recreation on. It may be a local land trust or another nonprofit group like that has lands like for conservation reasons, but they allow recreation on it. So the possible access layer is saying, hey, this might be an option for you. You might be able to go hunt this, but you got to do some homework. You got to do your due diligence. Check with the landowner, check with your state fish and game agency. A lot of times they're the ones who broker those agreements to allow the public access. So they would be able to tell you, give you a go, no go, and let you know the different rules there. Going down below possible access is the Montana block management layer. Now again, your state may or may not have a program like this. I think we're up to like 30 some states have a walk-in access type program. So again, block management is private land that's open to public hunting. So I'm going to find an example of one right here. In your state, like I said, it's likely called something different. In Kansas, it's walk-in hunter access. A lot of states, it's just walk-in access, access yes. North Dakota calls it plots. Every state calls it something different, but all the programs are usually pretty similar. The landowner gets some sort of financial incentive to open up their lands to public hunting. So in Montana, a type 1 BMA like this one here, you show up, there's a sign-in box. You put down some information, the date, your name, what your vehicle is in the description. You keep one slip in your pocket, that's your permission slip. You put another slip in the box, and that's how they're able to keep track of how many people are in and out of that place. Some states, it's just walk in. All you need is like a hunting license or something, and you're good to go. So double check the rules of your state, but that's typically a pretty good opportunity, especially in states where there's not a lot of public land, like Iowa, like Kansas. There might be more huntable land around you than you realize once you turn that layer on. All right, I want to go quickly through some of these other layer folders. Like I said, we've got dozens and dozens of layers. Don't have time to go through them all, but I want to talk about some of the common ones that people want to talk about. So going into let me back up first. So we talked about Montana state layers. A lot of that's going to apply whether you're in California or New Hampshire, or Georgia, or wherever. The rest of these folders, the ones titled current conditions, land and access, roads, trails, and rec, trees, crops, and soil, and wildlife layers. These are nationwide layers, but you get access to these whether you have a premium or an elite membership. So this current conditions folder is showing me data throughout the entire country, even if I only have a one state membership. So that's a question we often get was, man, I'm in Colorado, I'm looking for the wildfire layer, but I don't see it listed under Colorado. That's because it's a nationwide layer, so it's in its own folder here. So this active wildfire layer, we are hopefully coming out of wildfire season here, but there still are, quite a few going. So this is what that layer looks like when you turn it on. This is a fire south of Missoula here. You see the name on there. And then if you see those yellow dots kind of on the southwestern edge, those are showing hot spots, showing you where the fire is kind of moving or where it's had some flare-ups. So you can kind of get a sense of what direction is this fire going, where is it burning the hottest, things like that. Again, if I want more information, tap on the map. So I just tapped on that fire there. It gives me the name Sherritt Creek. And this fire may be out, to be quite honest, because you see the source updated line there. It says source updated September 19th. That means the responding agency last updated their information on their side September 19th. We check multiple times a day. We'll ping that source. And every time there's an update, we update it in the app. There hasn't been an update for 11 days. That sometimes happens when a fire is nearly out or completely out. They're not updating it as often. So we don't pull it until we receive confirmation that yes, this fire is out. But you can kind of get a sense there. It's been 11 days since they updated. If that fire was still raging and was still moving, they would have updated it. Gives you some information about how much has burned and what percent contained it is. Okay, so if you zoom out, you can start to see, Idaho's got quite a few fires going. Oregon, all of those red flame icons are showing you where fires are burning. And again, that was in the current conditions folder. There's a bunch of other information in here. We don't have time to go into them all, but if you see a layer that you're interested in, turn it on. The best way to learn how to use onX is just mess around with it. There's nothing you can break. There's nothing you can do that can't be undone. So turn layers on, turn them off, take a look at them. You can always tap on the details as well. So I just tapped on details for active wildfire. It's going to give you a little bit more information about what that layer is and what it shows. Scrolling down to land and access. Wilderness areas is probably turned on by default on your side. So that's showing that, capital W federally designated wilderness. Like we've got the Rattlesnake Wilderness north of town here. If I go up to the Bob Marshall Wilderness up here, it's got that kind of hash marked look over it there. Another layer I find useful is our Fish and Wildlife Service hunt areas. That's going to look like what I have on the map right now, showing you those wildlife refuges that may or may not be open to hunting and fishing. If they're open, we're going to show you information about them and what, if there are different zones and things like that, we'll have those highlighted on there. Again, if you want more information, tap on the map and we will link you to the Fish and Wildlife Service website. You can tap on that. That will take you to the source of truth so you can read all of the different rules and regulations for those refuges. Again, play around in the land and access folder. There's a lot of cool layers in there. Last one I really want to go into right now, the last collection, is the roads, trails, and rec layer. These are layers I have turned on. I almost never turn them off, at least 4 or 5 of these. So trails, trail slope, trail mileages, and recreation sites, as well as the motorized roads and trails layer, I always have turned on. I'll show you what these look like. I'm gonna get back up to Missoula here. I'm gonna zoom in on Mount Sentinel, pretty popular hiking area with a lot of trails. So right now my trails are black and white, and I'm able to see on Mount Sentinel all the different hiking trails here. My favorite part of this folder here is the trail slope layer. You see, I just turned that on. Now those trails are color-coded based on steepness. So red being the steepest, green being the flattest, and green, yellow, orange, red, all the way up. So you can really get a sense, it's easy at a glance to tell what trail's steep, what trail's flat, what one do I want to hike on. So I can see this one that goes up the ridge here is pretty red. If I go just to the north, that trail along the river there, pretty flat. It's all green, right? The other big one in this folder I think people should have turned on, and I think is criminally underused, is the motorized roads and trails layer. So you do have to scroll down to find that one. It's towards the bottom. But that is going to show you on Forest Service land motorized roads and trails, just like the name says. So if I turn it off, if you look at my map up above, you can see how that changes the picture quite a bit. So these are trails that are designated. Yep, they're motorized. They receive maybe not a ton of maintenance, but some sort of maintenance. They're more than just an old logging road that maybe they logged 20 years ago and now has trees growing out of it. These are going to be your better roads in the mountains, or not even in the mountains, in Forest Service. Northern Minnesota, where I deer hunt every year. I grew up in the central part of the state. Couple national forests up there. You can use this layer up there as well. Any state that has Forest Service land, you should have this data. Again, if I tap on a road, it's going to tell me more information about it. If I scroll down here, it tells me the name of the road, the ID number, and then the two big things are the accessible by and the open dates. Accessible by is going to tell you if there's a width restriction on the road. So if it's just a dirt bike trail, it'll say accessible by dirt bikes. If it's got a 50-inch width restriction, so for those smaller side-by-sides and ATVs, it'll tell you that. This one is accessible by pretty much everything. It says overland. That's going to be like your regular pickup truck or your Jeep. Even some of these, I've seen people drive a Pontiac Grand Am down, right? You typically don't need aftermarket off-roading accessories for these overland roads. If it says high clearance 4x4, some of those I've still taken my, kind of basic stock GMC pickup truck down. They are going to be a little bit rougher. So some of those, you got to kind of ground truth it. Some of those you may need bigger tires and a lift kit and all that stuff, and they're pretty rough. No way to really tell without going, unfortunately, but if it says overland, you can be sure that it's a little bit smoother, a little bit more maintained than those high clearance ones. The other important one here is this open dates. A lot of our roads in Montana close down, particularly during hunting seasons and for spring birthing, calving and fawning seasons. So this road here opens on May 16th and closes October 14th. A lot of roads in Montana, they'll close a section prior to archery season. They'll close a section prior to rifle season, and then they close a whole bunch of them right after rifle season for wintering areas and then spring fawning areas. Don't make the mistake I did when I was brand new out here in Western Montana. I was going to go out looking for a spring bear, drove out to this road, and the gate was closed because it didn't open until May 16th, and I was there on like May 10th. So save yourself the trouble, tap on the road. It's going to tell you the information that you need. All right, so I've said it before, there's a lot more layers in there. There's all kinds of information. Play around with them, mess around with them. We'll be here for hours if I go into every layer, so we are going to move on. Let's talk about using onX when you don't have cell service. One of the common questions we get of, does it work when I don't have service? Absolutely. To use the app to its fullest potential when you don't have service, you need to download offline maps before you go. So if I go down to the lower left-hand corner below that map layers button, there's a button that says offline maps. If I tap on that, I'm going to see something that says new map and go offline. And I already have a bunch of maps downloaded onto this account. So you see them listed there. Northwest Montana 2, Northwest Montana, preseason test, etc. You may not have anything listed there. That's okay. We'll talk you through how to download a map. So for right now, I'm going to close out of this menu and I'm going to move to an area of a state where I don't have a map. As I'm moving around, you see these rectangles throughout the state? Those are offline maps I've downloaded previously. So that's a way you can tell if you have a map in an area or not. So let's go down this area, Montana. I don't have a map here. Let's say I want to try hunting this area. So I get my map basically centered on the area I want. Let's say I'm going to hunt this unit 324 here. I've never been there, so I'm not trying to hotspot or anything, just picking a spot at random. So I tap the offline maps button. Now I'm going to tap this orange new map button. Now my map view changes a little bit. Whatever is within this red box is what's going to be saved. So I can zoom out and make my map bigger. I can move around just with one finger. I'm moving my map like I normally do to change where that box goes. And I can also choose the size of my map. Down below, you see I have 3 options: low, medium, and high. That is talking about the imagery detail of the map. Most of the time, especially if I'm hunting the West, I use a medium detail map. It gives me a big map. On this device, it's about 80 miles by 115. Every device is going to be slightly different based on the dimensions of your screen. So on my phone, it's a little bit different, etc. So don't freak out if your numbers look different than mine. That's normal. So my medium detail map, let's say I get it right there. If I know I'm only going to be hunting one small area, like I mentioned, when I go back to Minnesota to deer hunt, we've been in the same camp for decades. Our stands are in similar spots, right? And we're not going to be hopping in the car and driving 20 miles to go hunt a different spot. We're hunting kind of a small area. In that case, I'm going to go to a high detail map. So it's a smaller map, but the imagery is more detailed. You see, I still get pretty good coverage here. You know, it's 25 by 35 miles. So when I'm, northern Minnesota, I really only need probably a few miles by a few miles. So you can get that. You can really zoom in. And now you see the size of my map has gotten quite small, 1.8 miles by 1.9. If you want to save some storage on your device and you don't need a big map, you can zoom in, let's say, let me find, my app just crashed on me. This tablet's been having issues. So let's go back to offline maps, go back to new map. I'm gonna get back to where I was. But let's say I knew I was just gonna hunt. That's not good. Live TV keeps crashing on me. That's what you get for trusting technology when you need it most. We're gonna go back one more, try to save a map. Hopefully this will work for me. But what I was saying was, if you have one property that you want, you can save just that property. But again, most of the time, I'm going to save a medium-sized map. I'm going to name my map. So this one, I'm just going to name it test map because this is a test account. Name your map something that means something to you. I typically will do it based on either a hunting unit or like a nearby town. So I live in Missoula. I will have Missoula North, Missoula South, Missoula East, Missoula West. So I know I've got kind of the surrounding area covered. If I'm hunting in unit XYZ, I'll save that unit and name it unit XYZ or something like that. So once I hit save, that is going to start downloading my map. So you see I saved a relatively small one here, but that green outline shows me where that map is saved. And it's already downloaded. That one that says test map, since it's relatively small, downloaded pretty quickly. So as I zoom out, you can see all these different maps that I saved. You can see I've got a really big one here. That is a low detail map. I use those as kind of a backup. the aerial imagery is not going to be as crisp on those offline maps. Here, when I'm online, it doesn't make any difference, right? I can zoom in and it's normal. But when I'm offline, that big map, because of the size, is going to be less detailed imagery. You're still going to get all of your roads and trails. You're going to get your hunting units, property ownership, all that's the same. So the reason I use these as a backup is a couple weeks I'm going to be out in eastern Montana, pheasant and pronghorn hunting. That could involve a lot of driving. I have a bunch of maps saved, some of those medium detail ones, but let's say I kind of drive through all those areas and don't find what I'm looking for. Need to go to a new area. Unless I want to drive to town or drive somewhere to find service, I'm kind of out of luck if I don't have a bigger map saved for those other areas. So like I said, you can save smaller maps within a bigger one. So I have these medium detail maps within the big one. So while I'm looking at these maps, I'll have that better imagery quality. But then if I go outside of it, I'll lose a little bit. Okay, so just something to consider. Again, if you're going to a deer camp, you've got a private lease, you've got some, family land, or you're hunting this one small WMA, and you're like, this is where I'm going to be. Don't worry about this. Save your map, cover in that area, and go hunt happy. You might notice on my map, I have some rectangles that are green and some that are red and white. These red and white ones are maps that I had saved previously, but are no longer downloaded on this device. So if you ever have to get a new phone, for example, and you transfer everything over, you get your onX app transferred over, you log in with your same email and password you used on the old phone, you're gonna see all of your maps looking like this. That's because they're not downloaded onto that phone. You have to re-download them. You could also get into this scenario if you have an iPad like I have here and you use the iPad when you're at home because it's got a bigger screen, but then you use your phone when you're out in the field. If you downloaded a bunch of maps on your iPad, when you pull up your phone, you'll see these red and white stripes. That's because that data has not been downloaded to your phone's internal storage there. So you have to download them. If I scroll through my map, I'm going to find one of these. You see this one titled Glacier. Looks different. Most of my maps have this green check mark. That green check mark means the map is downloaded and ready to go. If it has this arrow next to it, that means it's not downloaded on that device. So if I'm going to go up to Glacier National Park, I'm going to want this map. So if I tap on this arrow that's pointing down, that's going to start downloading that map for me. Another way you could get into this scenario is what I do personally. I mentioned I have an antelope tag this year. I haven't had one in a couple of years. So it's not a species that I hunt every year in Montana. Can't always draw a tag. I will download all the unit or the units that I can hunt, and then I'll do my hunt. Hopefully I get one this year, but I'm probably not going back to those areas until I draw another tag. So what I will do to save space on my phone is I will offload those maps from my phone. Here's what that looks like. If I go to this map titled Northwest Montana, I'm going to tap on the name. It'll bring me to that map. Let's say I no longer need this. If I go over to the three dots on the right side and tap on it, I can tap Remove from Device. So now I have that candy cane border. So what that does is the app remembers you had a map saved here so that it's easy to re-download it when I want it again, but I don't have all that data taking up space on my phone. So next year, the year after that, when I draw an antelope tag, I'm going to have all of these red and white boxes on my map from my tag this year. But let's say it's 2026. Okay, now I don't have to go in and place all of those boxes. I can just tap on those down arrows to re-download those maps for my antelope hunt area. Save some time that way. Last thing on offline maps here, you see some of them say update available. That means that something has changed on the map since I last downloaded or updated these maps. So if I go to this one, I'm just going to tap on Northwest Montana 2. It says update available. What's probably changed there is land ownership. Somebody's bought and sold a house or some land. It may be that hunting units have changed. Typically, in a lot of states, we update that in the spring when they come out with their regulations, spring and summer. It could be a different trail. It could be any number of things that have changed. You can update it just by tapping on that green check mark, and that will kick off that update. If you want to do them all at once, I can go to the top of this offline maps menu, the top right corner, and tap on those three dots. And I can update all of my maps if I want. It'll just do them boom, 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 one at a time. I'm not going to do that right now just because we don't have the time to sit and let them all download. But that's an option for you as well. Some states you're going to see update available maybe weekly, maybe almost daily. Just depends on how often we update information there. So in Montana has a fantastic system for their private land ownership data. We're able to update it very, very frequently. Some states only update it once a year. So we try to match our update schedule to the state or the county. So if your map says update available, don't think that you can't use it. That's a question I get sometimes is, hey man, what am I supposed to do when it says update available and I'm going out hunting? Do I have to pull over and find Wi-Fi and update that map? You don't. Go hunting, okay? It's good to update as often as you can, but if you do it at the beginning of hunting season, you're probably going to be pretty good. Don't let it keep you from hunting. If you're driving out and you see an update available, go hunt, update when you get a chance. I do it probably on a weekly basis, but I'm primarily hunting. I'm blessed in Western Montana. We have a lot of public land. That's primarily what I hunt. That doesn't change very often. If I have access to some private land and that private land access changes, hopefully the owner calls me and tells me, hey, I sold this piece or I sold that piece. Here's the new owner's information if you want to ask him or her to go hunting or something like that. So it's a good idea to update your maps when you think about it, but it's not necessarily mission critical all the time. Just do it once in a while. Don't go years between updates, but when you think about it, kick off those updates there. I think that pretty well covers offline maps. I should mention we often get the question, hey, can I still track myself? Can I mark waypoints? Can I do all those things while offline? Yes, you can. You can still see where your location is. You can still query the map to pull up information. There's a few layers that don't work offline. Like I know the precipitation radar layer, that's pulling live weather data. That of course isn't going to work when you're offline. But the vast majority of them do. Same thing with tracking yourself, marking a waypoint, all that good stuff works nearly identically to how it does when you're online. All right, so speaking of waypoints, let's talk about them. There's a couple of different ways to mark waypoints on the map. So I'm going to zoom in on my location so you can see this. That blue dot is where I am. I'm going to go down to my tools menu. That's the bottom center of my map screen. It says tools. The icon looks kind of like a Swiss Army knife. Tapping on that opens up the tool bar or the tool menu here. The first way I'm going to show you how to mark a waypoint is the button that says Mark My Location. That's in the top row, second from the right. When I tap Mark My Location, that is going to place a waypoint where I am located. So this is what I use predominantly when I'm out in the field and I want to mark something. So when I park the truck, if I'm hunting a new area, mark my location, and then I will customize the waypoint. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. When I set a tree stand up, mark my location so that I can find that tree stand. If I find a sweet elk wallow or a buck rub, mark my location. When I find a dead animal, mark my location, right? So that's going to place a waypoint where you're located. If you want to mark a waypoint on a different spot, there's a couple different ways to do that. So I'm still in my tools menu here. If I go just to the left of Mark My Location, there's a button that says Add Waypoint. That's going to place a waypoint in the center of your screen. Now, this might not be where I want it. What I can do is I'm just tapping on my map right now, tapping where I want that waypoint to be. The more you zoom in, the more accurate you can be, right? So let's just pretend that's where I want it to be. I can hit the save button. There it's saved. Couple other ways to mark a waypoint. If you query the map, so I just tapped on that parcel, you can see there's a green dot there on my map. If I go down to the bottom, below all the private lands information, there's a few different buttons there. I can tap Add Waypoint. That will also put a waypoint on that spot that I can save. The fourth way we're going to talk about today is adding a waypoint via a long press. So this would be if I tap the map and hold my finger down for a couple of seconds. I'm going to do that in this green field here. Put my finger down. After a couple seconds, a waypoint pops up. Once you start doing that, that's, in my opinion, the fastest way to mark a waypoint. It honestly took me a little while to get used to it. But once you do, that's a quick way to mark up your map. So again, if you hold your finger down, it's going to mark a waypoint. If you do this accidentally, I still do it all the time where I accidentally just leave my finger on the screen. You don't have to save it. You can go to the top left and just hit cancel. And that'll remove it and bring you back to your regular map view. Okay, so I've marked some waypoints on my map, but they all look the same. The power of waypoints is really when you start customizing them. So right now, I've marked this waypoint. Let's say, right now, I'm like, sweet, I saw a deer there. Next March, when I'm looking at this waypoint, am I going to remember that's where I saw a nice buck? Probably not. There's not any information that tells me that. So what you want to do is tap on the waypoint. It's going to bring up this menu. Along the bottom, there's an orange button that says Edit. I'm going to tap on Edit. First thing you should do is name your waypoint. I saw a big buck. I'm going to name it Big Buck. Then change the icon. So you see right now it's got that orange X there. If I go all the way to the right and tap the plus sign that says More, now it's going to give me, I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 different options for different waypoints. Everything from, shed antler, pack, mineral site, food plot, chucker. Okay, so I saw a big buck here. I could use the generic buck icon, or if you're in a state like Montana where we have whitetail and mule deer, I'm going to denote it as a buck whitetail. Or if it was a mule deer, I'd choose mule deer, of course. Next thing you do, change the color. I color code my waypoints. This is one of the ways I'm more efficient when using onX is by color coding my waypoints. Everybody has a different system. There's no real right or wrong way to do it. The only wrong way to organize your waypoints is to do nothing. So personally, what I do is I do mine by species. I'm a generalist hunter. I hunt deer, elk, upland birds, waterfowl, pronghorn, bear, turkey, you name it. So I will do different species and different colors. Since I first started out with onX when I was primarily a whitetail deer hunter, I use that default orange as my deer color. Okay, my bears are blue. My elk spots are brown. That way, when I have all of my waypoints up on the map, I can easily tell at a glance. These are deer waypoints, these are turkey waypoints, these are elk waypoints. That's one way to do it. A lot of people at onX do it based on year. So they will say, all right, doesn't matter what species I'm hunting, but my 2022 waypoints were yellow, and 23 were purple, and 24 is brown, so that they can easily tell by year. That's another good way to do it. I've also seen people, especially if you're pretty much just hunting one species, if you're hunting deer and you have a property set up, you might not want all your waypoints the same color. In that instance, if I was setting up, a property for deer hunting, I would color code my waypoints kind of based on what they are. So tree stands might be green and ground blinds might be blue. And I'm trying to think of an example here. Rubs I find might be one color and scrapes might be another color and deer sightings will be another color. I might put a bedding area as this color. You get the idea. Whatever makes sense to you, find a system and stick with it. And after a while, it will become second nature. So we've renamed our waypoint. We've selected our icon. We've changed the color. I can put notes in here as well. I don't do this for every waypoint. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It can be kind of fun to make this a little bit of a journal. I mentioned earlier, when I shoot a deer or shoot an elk, I mark that waypoint. I'll take some pictures. I will attach those photos. You can see you can do that above. I'm not going to demonstrate because I don't have any pictures on this work tablet here, but on my personal phone, I'll add the grip and grin picture of me holding the deer. And then I'll put notes in there, got it on such and such date at this time, came in from the east, shot it with my bow or, shot it with grandpa's old rifle or something. It's kind of neat to go back sometimes and look at the pictures and look at the notes, especially if I write the notes at the time, because that emotion starts coming back too. So again, option for you. I think notes are really cool, especially for scouting as well. I'll say, hey, scouted this area on September 1st, didn't see much sign. Scouted this area September 10th, saw 5 deer. Again, do what makes sense for you and what's going to work. But as far as customizing a waypoint, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it later. So if you're just marking waypoints, you're not changing the name, you're not changing the icon, you're not changing the color. Later on, you're going to have a map with 100, 200, 1,000 orange X's. Then you're going to have to spend time trying to remember what the heck it was you just marked there. If you can do it from the beginning and hit save, now it's brown. It's got a buck icon. If I tap on it, it says big buck. Still gives me the date and time. Helps me out so I know what I was looking at there. There's a couple other tools you can use here. We don't quite have time to demonstrate. We're almost an hour in already. There's some other stuff I want to get to, but you can use the line distance tool and area shape. I'll demo the line distance real quick. That's how I can quickly measure spot between 2 points. You can add as many points as you want. Line distance is useful for that. Area shape lets you measure an area. So I could highlight an area, get the perimeter, get the acreage. A lot of people will use this for food plots so that they know, all right, I'm gonna plant a plot here. It's 0.22 acres. I know how much seed I need to buy. I know how much fertilizer, things like that. Again, you can color code all of these. I can make them whatever color I want. So again, you can color code your food plots based on these are brassicas, these are turnips, this is a rye plot, this is clover, just so you can tell at a glance what you're looking at there. I'm going to take a drink of water because I've been talking for an hour. Next up, let's talk about the tracker. The tracker is in the lower right-hand corner. If I tap on it, it brings up this start button. I'm going to tap that. Now you can see my blue location dot is turned red. That tells you the track is recording. And then if I were moving instead of sitting in an office, you would see kind of a turquoise or a light blue dashed line extending out behind me as I walk or as I drive. The tracker is useful for a lot of different things. The most obvious to me is safety. I'm going into a new area. I'm gonna mark a waypoint, change it to the truck icon or the four-wheeler, whatever I use to get in there, so that I have that. Then I'm also gonna start my tracker so that I can see exactly where I've been and find my way back out at the end of the day or at the end of the hunt. So the tracker is good for that. Tracking is also useful for blood trailing an animal. Every time I blood trail an animal, even if I know it's down, I will run a track, sometimes because I just want to see exactly how far it went. If, the worst happens and you have an animal that might not be dead or runs a long ways, the tracker is useful for blood trailing. You can see where you've been, where you haven't. You might be able to zoom out and kind of get a picture of where might this animal be heading? What direction are they traveling generally, to try to point, oh, maybe they're heading to this thick swampy area, or maybe they're heading to this water hole. You can also share markups with other people. So I can share a waypoint with somebody. I can share a track with other people as well. So if I have a bunch of people that are helping me blood trail, when we're done, let's say we don't find the animal, we got to come back in the morning, we can share our tracks with each other to see where everybody's been, so that we're not duplicating efforts, and we can see, oh man, there's this big area nobody walked. Let's go there tomorrow. I'm going to stop my tracker right now because I'm not going anywhere. If I had moved, it would give me the option to save this. I haven't gone anywhere, so it doesn't. So I'm going to delete it. Let me do that one more time. Delete. There we go. So I mentioned sharing a waypoint. You can share a track, you can share a waypoint, you can share an area shape, a line distance. To share something, I'm going to use this waypoint here. I'm going to tap on it. Bottom of my screen, next to that edit button we used a few minutes ago, is the share button. Tap on that. Most of the time you're going to be sharing with a link. So this is going to generate a text link that you can text message to somebody or email to them or share it via Facebook or whatever you want. If I hit the next button, it's going to open up this menu. Again, this is a tablet that doesn't have cell service, so texting isn't an option. But you'd be able to text it to your friends. They'll get a waypoint, or they'll get a text, it'll say, Jack has shared a waypoint with you. You'll tap on it. It'll open it up in their app. They will choose whether to accept that share or not. If they accept it, that waypoint will be showing on their map in the same spot. And it will be, if you're familiar with like Google Docs, it will be read only for them. They're not going to be able to edit it or change anything about it or share it with anyone else, okay? Because it's your waypoint, you own it. Super helpful, again, for safety purposes. If you're going out hunting by yourself, you have a loved one back home, you could text them. Here's where I'm planning to park. I'm going to hike into the north. If you don't hear from me by 10 o'clock, maybe send help or something like that. I used it earlier this year. I shot an elk, was texting a buddy. Him and his dad were going to come help pack it out. I had my track leading from the parking area in, so I sent them, this is where I parked, sent them the truck waypoint, and then sent them the track. So they knew exactly where to walk to come in to find me to where I had that elk so that we could pack it out easy. So pretty slick. All right. Last thing I want to talk about in the app before we go to the web map is finding your location and using compass mode. So if I just move the map away from my location, I don't see my blue dot anywhere, right? But I want to get back to see where I am. In the lower right-hand corner of the map, there's a button that looks like a crosshair. I'm going to tap on that button, and the map moves to my location, and I'm centered. So one more time, lower right-hand corner, button looks like a crosshair or maybe a wagon wheel. It's going to bring me to my location. If I tap that button a second time, you see now it turns into where it looks kind of like an arrow, and my map has spun. As I move my tablet around or my phone, as I spin it, the map is going to spin with me. Normally north is oriented up on the map, but when I'm in this kind of heads up mode is what I call it, whatever direction my tablet is facing is going to be up on the map. So this is useful if you're, don't necessarily do this while you're driving, but if you're the passenger in a car and you're navigating, or if you're just hiking down a trail, I want to know what's ahead of me, what's to my left, what's to my right, what fork of the road do I need to take. So most of the time when I'm out hunting and I'm covering ground, I have my app in this mode so that I can easily tell what's ahead of me. Do I need to take a detour? Where do I turn left and turn right? especially if I'm following a previous track. Like if I had saved a track into a deer stand, I want to be able to follow that exactly so that I don't get off into a marshy area or so that I don't walk through the bedding area unintentionally. I'm going to follow that track right to my deer stand. You'll also notice once I went into this heads up mode, along the bottom right corner, a third icon has appeared. It looks like a compass needle. If I tap on that compass, that's going to bring us into compass mode. So this is we introduced this feature last year. It's relatively new, but it helps you to place a waypoint, a distant waypoint with some precision. It's kind of the idea behind it. So I can still move my map. I can still rotate it. So I used this last year. The example I often use is my mule deer hunt from last year. I was hunting mule deer in some open, kind of breaky type country. Saw a bedded mule deer buck. He was, I think, 360 some yards away, a little bit farther, and I was comfortable shooting with that particular rifle. So I knew I had to get a little bit closer. I found an area that looked like I could get to it without being, without spooking the deer. Looked like a good shooting position. I'd be able to lay prone and get a closer shot at the buck. I got down there. I laid down, got set up. The buck hadn't moved. I ranged it with my rangefinder, and it said 270 yards. Perfect. I pointed my phone at the deer. I turned on this compass mode like you see here. Got the phone pointed at the deer. Then I tapped that rangefinder icon in the lower right-hand corner. So that one that's above your base map button, looks like a rangefinder. Tap on that, it just turned orange on my screen. And then the bottom half of the line coming off of my location dot has turned red or orange. And you see to the left, it says 584 yards. That is allowing me to mark a waypoint on a specific spot. So I can move it. I'm just dragging my finger up and down on the screen. So if I need to zoom out farther, go all the way to the top, it'll zoom me out. Goes pretty quick. If I need to zoom in, drag it all the way to the bottom. Now it's going to zoom me in. Okay, so my buck was at 270 yards. I have my phone pointed at it. I move that slider to 270 and tap that orange waypoint icon right above 270. Now that placed a waypoint there. Okay, so I have the exact spot where that buck is laying. Again, change the icon on here, but if you're in the middle of a hunt, do it after. Don't worry about it until you're done. But now I have this waypoint that's useful for a couple of reasons. In my scenario, 270 yards was within my comfortable shooting range. I laid there for over an hour. Finally, a doe moved up towards him and got him out of his bed. He stood up. I shot him. He went over the ridge he was standing on and out of sight. I felt good, right? But unless I see the animal drop, there's still that little bit of, did I get him or didn't I? But I had the exact spot to start blood trailing. So I was in kind of this coulee country, had to climb down, get down to kind of the creek bottom, walk along the bottom a little ways before I started climbing back up. If you've hunted big game especially, even if you're not making long shots in the West, I mentioned I deer hunt northern Minnesota every year, 100 yards is a long shot in the woods there. But you climb down and there's all this aspen regrowth, hazelbrush, willows, things look totally different. So to have that waypoint of this is where the animal was, or it's very close to it to start blood trailing, can be super helpful. You can also use it for planning a stalk. If I see an animal and it's 800 yards away, right? I'm not shooting that far, but I want to be able to put a stalk on it, but I might have to drop out of sight. I might have to go way around because of the wind. It's nice to range it with my rangefinder, place the waypoint on that spot, then I at least know I have an aiming point. I know where to go. And if I am planning a stalk, I'm just going to exit out of here. What I often do is I tap on the waypoint. Again, edit it if you want. I'm not going to, just to save time here. But if I scroll up, I can open up this waypoint radius. This allows me to draw a circle around the map of a given radius. So 100 yards by default here. Let's say I'm archery hunting and my effective range is 50 yards. I can apply that circle, and then now I can look at, all right, where do I need to get to? Obviously it's in town, we have to use our imagination here. This isn't a real life scenario. But if I were in the woods, I would be able to look at it and say, all right, within that circle, where do I think I could get to undetected to get a shot? Where's there some good cover? Where can I use the topography? And as I walk, as I stalk in closer, my blue dot will let me know as I'm getting close to shooting range. So I'm still gonna probably wanna use my laser rangefinder, but now I at least know when I'm getting close enough to start pulling that out versus doing it when I'm still 100 yards away. I think we've covered the compass mode. One thing I should mention, speaking of compass mode, if you have a compatible Leupold or SIG rangefinder. So Leupold only has one rangefinder that integrates, works with onX right now. I believe it's the RX 5000. SIG has a bunch of them. So if you have a SIG rangefinder that pairs with their BDX app, it's compatible with onX. I don't have a full list right now, but if it's the Bluetooth compatible and works with their app, it should pair with onX. We have more information about this on our website, but you can go into basically do what I just did, that rangefinder mode. But what you do is on your, like I've used the Leupold one for example, so I'll talk to that. I open up the Leupold app. It'll have a button there where it will allow me to pin a waypoint. I'll tap, it says pin next on the Leupold app. I tap pin next, I range the target. It will put a waypoint on my onX map where that target is located. It's pretty sweet technology. It uses compasses and everything within the device, within the rangefinder to tell where you are, what direction it is, how far away it is, and it'll place a waypoint on there. So all that stuff I just demonstrated, talking about my mule deer hunt of moving the slider to 270 and all that, you can kind of automate it with one of those new rangefinders. It's pretty sweet technology. Unfortunately, I can't demo it right here because I'm sitting in an office, but take a look on our website, and Leupold and SIG both have information on their sites as well. All right, what time are we at? We're over an hour here. I'm babbling on too long. I'm gonna stop sharing, and now I'm gonna go to my web map on my computer. So this is something that I think is underutilized. A lot of people don't know that they have access to onX Maps on their computer. So this comes with your membership. It's not a separate payment or anything. All you have to do is go to our website, onxmaps.com. There will be a login button in the upper right-hand corner. Enter the same email and password that you used on your app. You'll be brought to a map like this. And since I've just placed some waypoints on my mobile device, they haven't shown up here yet. I'm going to refresh my map so that we have those. So this should look pretty familiar to you. Okay, it's the same map, a lot of the same capabilities, just in a bigger format. So I use the web map for scouting primarily. It's a much bigger screen. It's a lot easier to take a look at a bigger area than it is on my phone. You'll see all those waypoints I just placed on my tablet. They're showing up here. So waypoints, tracks, any markups that you make on your phone or tablet will sync with your web map and vice versa. So if I use this for scouting and I make a bunch of waypoints on there of spots I want to check out, which is exactly what I've been doing for my upcoming pheasant and pronghorn hunt, when I pull up my phone and open the app up, they're shown there. Okay, so they automatically sync up. The reason I pulled up the web map is because I want to show you the difference between some of our different base maps, and it's easier to see on a bigger format like this. So in the lower right-hand corner, you see a button. If you follow my orange cursor down, it says SAT in 2D. You'll have the same button on your mobile device if you're following along there. It looks the same. If I click on it, I have 3 base map options: satellite, hybrid, and topo. So if I zoom in on my map here, satellite should be kind of what we're used to seeing. Basic satellite imagery, showing me the land, showing me the vegetation. This must have been taken in the fall because some of the larches are changing colors here. Okay, so this is useful, but I honestly don't use the satellite map very often at all. What I use primarily is the hybrid map. So I still have that same satellite imagery, but now you see these yellowish contour lines here. So that is the topography overlaid on top of the satellite imagery. So now you can kind of get a sense of where the ridges are, where the valleys are, how steep the terrain is, what the elevation is. I can see we got these major lines here, 6,200 feet, 6,000 feet, 5,800 feet, etc. So this is what I use 90% of the time because it gives me the satellite imagery as well as the topography. You can go to a straight topographic map as well if you'd like. This way, I like this if I'm really doing kind of some speed scouting and I want to look at south-facing slopes, for example. For spring bear hunting in western Montana, I'm looking for south-facing hillsides that are going to melt early and have that fresh green grass growing earliest. So I will often use the topo map. I'll place a bunch of waypoints. Then I'll go to hybrid and take a look and say, is it just dense forest canopy? Probably not great hunting because I can't see. This area's got some openings. That might be an area I want to hunt. I might take a look closer and see, maybe it's all shale rock. Maybe I don't want to hunt it, right? But that's kind of my process and how I use some of these different base maps. Right now we're in archery elk season. Common place to look for elk during the early season is north-facing slopes because they're cooler during the daytime and they might go bed on them. So this country's not looking super great because it's pretty steep, but I might look for a benchy area. You see it gets the lines get a little further apart here. That might be a spot an elk's gonna bed because it's on the north face, it's colder, it's a little bit flatter. They don't want to bed on a cliffside, right? So that might be a spot I would pin. So that's your 3 different base maps. If you're an elite member, you also get access to some different imagery options. The first one we're going to talk about is leaf off. Now, leaf off isn't available in every state. I believe we have 15 states right now, primarily east of the Rockies. So the places that have higher prevalence of deciduous forests. So we have it in Wisconsin here. I'm going to zoom in. Let me find an area. So this is our regular Wisconsin satellite imagery. If I go to leaf off, you can see quite the change there. So this is imagery that is taken in the fall or the winter after the leaves have fallen. So you can kind of see through the canopy a little bit. You can see, sometimes in some areas you can even see like deer trails through there more easily. You can easily tell the difference, or more easily, I should say, between, these are deciduous trees, right? I can see they go from green to brown. But in areas where it's more pine trees, you can see, they're coniferous, right? They're not shedding their needles. So again, leaf off imagery, not available in every state. We are working to add more. You'll know right away if we have it in your state or not, because like Minnesota, for example, it'll tell me no leaf off imagery available for Minnesota. So we only have it in select states. Some states have it available, some don't. So we want to have as many states as possible. We're going to keep adding more. Again, with the emphasis being on kind of the eastern half of the country, that's where that information is. Not that it wouldn't be helpful in Montana, Wyoming, California, etc., but a little bit more so in those more areas with more deciduous forests. All right. So again, that imagery is only available if you're an elite member. Same with the recent imagery. So I'm going to turn that on. Let me find a good spot here. we'll go in the Bitterroots here. So recent imagery is taken on a 2-week cadence, and it is lower resolution. So this recent imagery is not meant to replace your regular imagery. So as I zoom in, you can see it's pretty blurry already, whereas our regular imagery is pretty good. That's the trade-off. It's taken every 2 weeks, so it's updated more often, but it's less detailed. So it's just another piece kind of in the arsenal of, that you can use for scouting. But what's cool about it is you can go back in time. So down at the bottom, it tells me this imagery was taken between September 2nd and the 16th, and I can start scrolling backwards. So we're not going to see a whole lot of change here, but I get back to July, there's some snow hanging on. And as I go farther back, more and more snow, right? And some clouds sometimes, depending when the satellite flew over. So this is useful for a number of things. In the spring, I use it to check snow levels, to see if I can get into my hunting area, whether I have some turkey areas where I get snowed out of sometimes in the mountains. Bear hunting to see, hey, can I even drive that road, or is there too much snow? In the fall, I might use it to check the crop harvest. Have the crops come out of this area that I want to go pheasant hunting, or are they all still standing? Use it to check water levels for waterfowl hunting, things like that. You might just check it to see, hey, have the leaves come down yet? What's that stuff looking like? So pretty cool option there. You can go back all the way to, I believe it's March or April of 2023. So every 2 weeks you get a new set of images that you can start looking at. Maybe you're going to Colorado hunting this fall and you want to know, hey, what did this place look like in October of last year? Was there snow? Obviously every year can be quite a bit different, but you might be able to tell, hey, middle of October, this place had snow down to 8,000 feet or something like that. Just another piece of information you might use to help in your decision making. Last thing in the base maps here is 3D maps. So right now I have 2D selected. I can also go into 3D mode. And again, you can do this on your mobile device. You just go in and tap into 3D. But now as I zoom in, oops, accidentally double clicked on that, didn't mean to. But I can still zoom in and out. I can twist this around. It's a lot easier if you have a mouse. I'm just using a trackpad here, so it does get a little tricky. On your phone, you just use 2 fingers to spin it around and to zoom in and out. But another option for you, super helpful, even in not super mountainous areas. I use this in some areas of central Minnesota. There's a little bit of, it's hilly, but certainly not mountainous. But it does help you kind of tell some of those changes that might not show up on topographic maps. So even if you're saying, Jack, I'm not in the mountains, I don't care about 3D, take a look at it because you might learn some more information. You might be able to more easily see just a little bit of a saddle in a hill that you might not notice on a topographic map, but the deer are going to use that because it's just a little bit easier walking, things like that. All right. Let's move along here. We're already at 10 to 7. I was going to try to be done at 7. Last thing I want to talk about is the search function. On your phone or tablet, it's in the upper right-hand corner, and it looks like a magnifying glass. On your web map, it's going to be right here where it says search. I'm going to get rid of my previous examples. So you can search for a bunch of different things. You can search for a town, a county, a national park, a mountain peak. That would be under the location search here. So you have location selected. I'm going to go, if I could spell, Glacier National Park. I'm going to let it think a little bit. I'm going to click on it. It brings me up to Glacier National Park. I could go Duluth, Minnesota. Of course, it's not going to want to work for me now. Here we go. Duluth. It's going to bring me over to Duluth. Okay. One question we often get is, Jack, can I create a waypoint from a set of coordinates? And yes, you can. And the way to mark a waypoint from coordinates is via the search. So if you have coordinates from an old GPS or from another map or some other source, you can type it into the search. We recommend using decimal format. If yours is in UTM or degrees, minutes, seconds, there are a bunch of online converters you can use. They all work pretty much the same. You'll input it in UTM format, for example, and have it converted to decimal. Search works best in decimal. So to do a search for a coordinate, I'm just going to go type in my first coordinate. That's going to give me my north-south. So 46 dot. Do as many decimals as you have. The more decimals, the more accurate it's going to be. Your second coordinate has to have a minus sign in front of it. That's going to be your east-west. If you don't put the minus sign, it's going to put you in the other hemisphere, and you're going to end up in Europe or Asia or Africa or somewhere over there. So if you're looking in North America, you're going to want to have it be that minus. We're going to go just pick a random spot. Okay, I see the result down here. I'm going to click on it. It brings me to this spot in Texas. I can add a waypoint. Now I have it saved. That shouldn't be in Texas. Oh, it's in Montana, the landowners from Texas. I've been here for 6 years and I even confuse myself sometimes. So now I've got a waypoint marked at this spot from those coordinates. Okay. The final way to do a search is for a landowner name. So I'm going to click over to private land, and then I'm going to type in a name. So I'm just going to type in generic John Smith. And you can see I have a bunch of different options here, but they're all Montana. The search is going to prioritize whatever is on your map. So if my map is centered on Montana, it's going to give me results for Montana. If my map is centered on Georgia, it's going to give me results for Georgia and the surrounding areas. So the first thing you want to do if you're searching for a landowner, try to move the map to the area that they live if you know where they are. If you know, man, all I know is they're in Tennessee, at least move your map to Tennessee. Don't have it in Oregon, for example. And again, there's a lot of John Smiths. If you know John Smith's middle name, try putting that initial in there. If you know John Smith is married, try his spouse's name. The more information you can give the search, the better your results are going to be. So let's say I think this is it. I'm going to click on that one. It's going to bring me to that parcel. Well, maybe that's not the right one. I go back to my search. I click on the back button. I go to this John Smith. Okay, so you might have to do a couple of different searches to get the one you want, especially with a common name. But that's how you do that. You can just keep clicking through those to find the one that you want. All right, we covered a lot of territory there. I am going to pull up my slideshow again. I'm going to ask either Sarah or Michael to post the giveaway link in the chat. We'll have that there for you momentarily. I'm also going to display it on the screen here. So we're giving away 10 of these onX Hunt waterfowl quad tees, they're called. You can go to this website right here. Some phones we found for whatever reason won't let you click on a link when it's in the chat there. You might have to copy and paste it. Otherwise, type this in. And that giveaway is open till midnight tonight. So if you're watching this on the recording, you're watching it after the fact, it's no longer open, unfortunately. But we do these sorts of giveaways in just about every class. So sign up for a future one so that you can get entered. So I see the giveaway link is in the chat. Go ahead and click on that. And if you don't have an onX membership currently, if you have a basic membership, we have a 30% off discount for you. You use this code, app101 at checkout. That'll save you 30% off your first year's membership. You can go to this website as well. That's listed in orange. That'll take you right to the purchase page and have that code applied for you. It is important to note promo codes, this one or any other promo code that onX has, they do not work in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. App stores do not accept promo codes, has to be used on our website, onxmaps.com. If you have any trouble using that promo code, you can always email us. And even if you don't have a promo code question, any kind of onX question that you have, our customer support email is help@onxmaps.com. So HELP@onxmaps.com. We have a huge US-based customer support team. They're going to get you taken care of no matter what your question is, and they will answer your question within 24 business hours. So if you email them tonight, you can expect a response tomorrow sometime. Okay, so you're not going to be waiting multiple days for that. So again, if you're looking for a new membership, save 30%, use App 101. That'll save you some money there. If you want to further your knowledge here, our website is another phenomenal resource. We have a lot of tutorials on there. If you're more of you like to read something to learn it, we have a lot of well written out articles there. Our YouTube channel also has a lot of demos. We're releasing a lot more kind of how-to tips and trick type videos on the onX Hunt YouTube channel. I mentioned our customer support center. I'm biased because I work here. I started in customer support. I think they're some of the best in the business. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of them are based in Montana. Everybody's based in the US. They're going to be able to help you out whether you have a question about using map layers, whether it's resetting a password, whether it's a billing question. Hit those folks up. Again, help@onxmaps.com. They'll get you taken care of. And check out future classes. We do these 101s every month. So we've had people sign up for multiple 101s just to really let the info sink in. We do a monthly office hours class where it's me and sometimes one of our engineers just answering questions. Free form, so it's basically you decide what the topic is and we'll talk about it. We're also doing some deep dives. So this was a 101. We didn't go super deep into any one thing. Those deep dives is where we really pick apart one aspect of the app. The one we have coming up in October is looking at the tree and crop layers. Also check out our onX Hunt YouTube channel for all of our previous classes. Chances are, if there's a species you hunt, we've probably done a class on it. Now that I say that, I know we haven't done anything on squirrel and rabbit hunting. We probably should, but we've done waterfowl, we've done upland birds, we've done elk, we've done whitetail, we've done turkey, we've done bear. We've done a lot of that stuff, so check those out as well. All right, I did a lot of talking. I'm going to see if we have any questions that our customer support folks have passed on to me. So somebody mentioned the rangefinder feature. I did demo that a little bit earlier. I didn't demo it, but talked about it. So that rangefinder feature, again, we work with Leupold and Sig Sauer currently. We do hope to work with other manufacturers in the future. Of course, it takes two to tango. Other folks have to want to work with us, and their technology has to be there and be reliable and everything as well. So we'll hopefully be adding additional brands in the future. But right now, Leupold, Sig, the nuts and bolts of it is you open up your app, whether it's Leupold or Sig. You make sure it's paired with onX. You have to do that beforehand to make sure they're talking to each other and all the permissions have been given, on your phone. You range the target, range the animal, range whatever you want. It'll place a waypoint on your onX app and it'll be color coded, like the Leupold one has a little Leupold icon on it. The Sig one has a Sig icon. It'll place it on that spot for you. It's pretty slick if you have one of those rangefinders. I don't just yet. Hoping to get one myself here soon, hopefully. Question on HRT. So HRT, it's Hunt Research Tools. That's one of our elite benefits. You might not be using it a ton right now because we're not really in application season. I guess Arizona does have one. I think their deadline's today or tomorrow for some of their spring hunts, like their turkey and javelina and bison. but it's more, come December, January, February when you're applying for hunts in different states. So we have most of the Western states now. Last year was the first year of HRT, so we're still kind of building it out. It is a little bit in its infancy. We're working to add more species and more draw information. But Hunt Research Tools allows you to research tags. So let's say you want to go to Wyoming next year. You can see, all right, what are my odds for this elk tag versus that elk tag? What are my odds in this unit, that unit? You can kind of play around with points and see, hey, last year everybody with this amount of points drew the tag. Colorado's a good example for that because they're a preference point state. You can say, all right, to hunt elk in this unit, last year you needed 8 points. This year, probably you might need 9 or 10, depending on point creep. It allows you to check out the different season dates to help kind of plan out your fall. You can look at different weapon types. You can look at, all that information is in there for Hunt Research Tools to see where might I have a pretty good chance. Of course, nothing's for sure in draws, nothing's 100%, but give you, hey, last year, people with the same amount of points as me, 99% of them drew this tag. I'm going to put in for that and know I have a pretty good chance of drawing that. We do have some old master classes on our YouTube channel that kind of demo how to use Hunt Research Tools. We'll probably have some coming up this spring. We haven't set our schedule yet for master classes that far out, but we'll do some demos on Hunt Research Tools and how to use it. All right, so we went a little bit longer than I was planning. I want to thank everybody for staying with us tonight. It's September. We're in the best time of the year right now. I know a lot of whitetail states, a lot of archery seasons open up tomorrow on the 1st. A lot of duck seasons are opening up, a lot of uplands open. So hope everybody is getting out there and enjoying their fall. Hopefully onX can help make your fall a little bit more enjoyable. Hopefully it helps make you a little bit more efficient out there so that you can know where you are, where you're going, and get yourself out safe. Once again, if you have any other questions, stuff we weren't able to cover tonight, shoot us an email, help@onxmaps.com. Our fantastic customer support team will take care of you there. And check out our future masterclass schedule. We've got a bunch more coming up this season. And just once again, thanks for joining us, everybody. Hope you have a good evening, and we'll see you on the next one.